Now, my first guests today are two of the most popular comedians of their generation, and it's a thrill to be talking to Matt Lucas and David Walliams. How are you?
The two funniest men ever.
Have I insulted you already? What's the matter?
No, not insulted, but God, two of the funniest men ever. I don't think that's true.
Basically, you've made the mistake of paying us a compliment.
And now you're overanalyzing it. How have you managed it? Because, I mean, I remember you when you were on the radio doing Little Britain, and then suddenly it went to TV, and then everybody loves you, and now you're selling out arenas, which is unheard of for two comedians, really, isn't it?
Bribery. That's how you pull it off, really, is my understanding of events. Well, I don't know. It's just kind of blossomed, hasn't it, really? I think we owe a lot to BBC Three, which is where people found the TV show. And I think because it was a smaller channel and because it was something people discovered and then they just sort of took it to their hearts, I suppose. But now it plays on BBC One.
It's quite outrageous, and probably you, David, are more outrageous than anyone in this, because you're not scared of embarrassing yourselves in any way. If it's funny, it goes in.
Yeah, that's kind of a big part of what we do. I mean, we used to be a lot more outrageous, actually. We sort of toned it down a bit. Because when we started, we were sort of performing at midnight in Edinburgh and, you know, to a load of drunken people, and it was really outrageous and rude then. So we've sort of carried on that. I mean, I've always liked comedy, things like The Young Ones and Monty Python. They always had, you know, big moments that you talk about, going, I can't believe they did that. You know, and we always want to have moments like that in our show.
Who was your biggest inspiration for you, firstly, Matt? Because, I mean, I first met you in New York a while back, and then we saw you in Taboo. Of course, we know you from Rock Profile and all these different shows. You do so many different things, it's hard to kind of pinpoint.
I would say my first inspiration, my main inspirations, were probably Harry Enfield and Vic and Bob. Really, I think particularly when Vic and Bob came on, and I was about 16, and I know David feels the same, really. That was suddenly, it felt like a show that was being made for us. Didn't even aware that anyone else was even watching it. It just felt like it was being made for me.
Yeah, I think it hit me. I mean, I loved things when I was growing up, like The Young Ones and Blackadder, but it wasn't until I saw Vic and Bob that I thought that's really what I'd like to do in terms of, you know, be a comedian. But saying that, I think it's very hard that they're such their own thing, even though it really excited me. I think it's really hard to emulate what they do, and so I think in terms of actually influencing on what I like, what I think that we do, I think it's more people like Harry Enfield and The Far Show and Steve Coogan, who sort of, you know, doing sort of great character comedy.
When you were doing the radio show, did you think that it would end up turning into something this big, that you'd be able to get a live show from a TV show? Did you think that this had legs to be this big?
We always had this dream that the show would be a radio show, then a TV show, then go live, and, you know, that was always our master plan. But I don't think we ever dreamed it would be on the level it has been. I mean, I think we would have been delighted if we'd have had 2 series on BBC Two, really. I think that would have been, you know, a fine achievement.
Yeah, it's sort of, you know, other people went before us, and I'd have been, you know, that was always the sort of the sense, just 6.5 hours on BBC Two, that would be great. But, you know, it's not us that made it hit, it's the public, you know, and they sort of took it on board, and they started to feel sort of like they own the characters, and people have fancy dress parties and they dress up and all that, as, you know, Vicky Pollard or whatever, and it's great. It just took on its own energy, and it totally sort of took us by surprise.
I always think it's interesting when you have a big hit, because you can have one big hit, but coming back with one that's better and as funny is always the difficult bit. How much pressure's on you now? Because you've done this tour, you're probably going to do another one, you've just got the new book out, you've got the 3rd DVD. I mean, people must now expect you to be hysterical every time. Is that kind of driving you insane?
No, because I think we are always hysterical.
Well, hysterically funny, not hysterical. Well, no, I don't feel it. I feel you just got to keep on doing what you do and trying to write something interesting, make each other laugh, and see if other people like it. I mean, you know, we may never have a show as big as Little Britain, but that doesn't mean that we won't maybe make something good or interesting or that people will like, you know. I don't think you can kind of think, right, what would be really popular? Because I don't think we ever thought that with Little Britain. It wasn't like, right, how can we become really, really successful? It was just like, what makes us laugh? And I think you've just got to follow that. You know, sort of that line, really, than chasing sort of success.
Are you planning a Carolina Hearn where you're going to stop while you're ahead, or are you just going to keep going and milking it for as much money as you can?
Well, we don't really know what we're going to do next. We're going to do something together, but we may do more Little Britain, or we may do something else with the same characters, or we may do something else. We actually don't know. But I think we'll do something together. That is what we do know.
What is it like being in the point in your career when everybody's asking you to do their show and you're kind of the cream of TV and everybody wants you and they want you to do this and they want you to do that and they want you to do the other? That probably wasn't the case 5 or 10 years ago. How are you coping with it?
I think it comes in waves, you know, when you have a new show on, then everybody remembers you exist, and then, you know, 6 months later, and then things go a bit quieter, which is great. To be honest with you, we just try and live the same life we've always lived, which is kind of writing in David's kitchen for most of the year, and, you know, and just doing what makes us laugh. And I think anything else that happens is a bonus. You know, the fact that we can make a living doing what we do is a great privilege. But any sense of fame, I mean, it doesn't last anyway, so it's just something to enjoy while it happens.
How difficult is it to be funny and write when you're on tour? Because most of this year has been taken up with travelling from city to city, and now you've got to write another show. Can you do both at the same time, or do you have to do it separately?
Well, you can't spend as much time doing it because, you know, it's actually, I know people who work down a coal mine listening to this, when I say that writing is tiring, they might angrily write me a letter, but, you know, it's just quite mentally tiring, and you couldn't do that for 8 hours and then do a show and everything else. And when we were on tour before, I was also training swimming in the mornings and stuff like that, so we can write for a few hours in the afternoon, and it's good to do that, because the show, kind of the live show, you know, we change it a bit, but it basically remains the same, and it's quite good just to exercise that muscle, you know, that writing muscle, and think, oh yeah, we've got loads of new ideas, you know. But the show has to be, the live show has to be sort of technically set, and there's a couple of other actors in it, and, you know, we can't just make it different every night, because it just wouldn't work that way. Touch was great that we had other things to do while we were touring.
Comedy's really not designed for the arenas that you've been performing in. I mean, you've been doing venues where they can barely see you at the back. How does that work? I mean, do the big screens help?
Well, the show started off playing 1,600 seats, which actually is more intimate than it sounds, because, you know, we give quite big, broad performances anyway. You know, we're not known for our subtlety. But as we started to play bigger venues, you know, finishing up at kind of 12,000 seaters, yeah, we had to bring in big screens. But the show works really well, because it's a very visual show on stage. So I think people at the back still enjoy it.
The costume changes, I mean, both of you really, in a way. Presumably it's just mental backstage. That's almost a show in itself, getting from costume to costume.
Well, it was very hard at first, but it's amazing how quick the costume changes can become. And it's basically, you know, we have costumes under costumes and Velcro and all this kind of stuff, and it's actually works really smoothly now. In fact, you've kind of got time to spare now. It's kind of strange, but when we were putting the show together, it was a nightmare, because we thought, oh, we're never going to get changed in time, but it's amazing how, just with a bit of organisation, you know, but it's quite funny. It's quite funny to sort of stand there as people.
Matt, you're so distinctive looking and you're brilliant at these character roles. That's why I think Little Britain is as big as it is today. I've got to ask you the question, were you a funny child?
I was more funny peculiar, I think, but yeah, I think I was a bit mischievous. Because my hair fell out when I was 6, I wore this cap and it had a giant brim, and when I was being told off, I would kind of lower the peak and sort of chuckle underneath it so no one could see. But there were funnier people than me in the class. You know, I was more of a fan of comedy probably than the funny one.
How did the hair going affect you?
Well, I think when you're 6, you don't really think hugely about it, and I think going to the hairdressers is an ordeal. You just kind of get itchy hairs down your back, don't you, and things like that. And so I was quite pleased, really. And it kind of marks you out. Later on, I think when you're a teenager, you probably don't really want to be marked out. You probably want to fit in with everybody, so it becomes different then. But then I think many people have grown up with different, you know, things going on and different troubles and things, and in the grand scheme of things, it's not a major problem.
I think you're the bravest guy in comedy because you have no fear. I was watching the DVD that's just been released where you come in as Daffy, and you can literally almost see your privates. You don't appear to care what you look like on TV, which most people do. Most people in TV are very vain.
Well, I always think there's no vanity in comedy, but also I think, you can justify any sort of behaviour if you do it in character. And so I think it goes the same for both of us, that the sort of behaviour the sort of way we behave on TV, we would never do as ourselves, really. So yeah, I'm quite a dull dresser and quite a kind of preppy and sort of much quieter than the characters I play, and the same for David, really. But I think the presence of an audience or the presence of a camera kind of legitimises that sort of behaviour, justifies it in a way, even encourages it in our case.
How do you know you're funny and not just annoying and odd? Because you watch X Factor and people think they can sing when they clearly can't. How did you know that you were funny and that this was the path and you weren't wasting your time?
Well, both of us started out doing live performance, and we did that for a long time. So, you're fortunate in that when you perform comedy in front of an audience, you find out very quickly what people like and what people don't like. And that's how you do it, really. But now you do have whole episodes of Little Britain that are kind of shown to an audience without anybody apparently having seen them before. But actually what happens is we have producers and we have script editors and all sorts of people, and about once every 4 or 5 weeks we sit down and we read the stuff out aloud, and we're always quite honest, aren't we, in those situations, and quite blunt about what's working and what isn't working.
Is comedy the most important thing in your life, or do you prefer other things? Is this just something you do, or is your entire life based around watching other comedians and going to see performers and going to see shows?
No, I have a great love for comedy, and I feel very honoured to be part of British comedy right now, because I think with people like Peter Kay and Ricky Gervais and Steve Coogan and Catherine Tate, and the list is endless, isn't it? Even if you go back a few years, Caroline Aherne and Harry Enfield and the League of Gentlemen and what have you, that I'm part of something, a small part of something really great. But this is one of the important things in my life. But like anybody, they've got other things that we love, music and football and certain people.
Are people putting pressure on you to take stuff out and leave stuff in? How much editorial control do you have?
We pretty much are left alone. You have to exercise a little bit of self-censorship, don't you? You have to be realistic and go, well, you can write a gag like that, but you know yourselves, don't you, usually, whether it can be used or not. But on the whole, the BBC have been very good to us and let us kind of make our own mistakes, really.
One of the things that both of you have done have kind of allowed us to laugh at things again. There was a period during the 80s when you really were PC and you couldn't laugh at certain things. The things you do in your show, you couldn't do 5 years ago, could you, on TV?
Yeah, I think the things have changed. There was a moment where Vic and Bob blacked up to play Otis Redding and Marvin Gaye, and I think the point was they were blacking up to play specifically those people, rather than just going, oh, look how funny it is, me blacked up. And I think people characters like Alan Partridge and David Brent, you've kind of laugh at them as well as you laugh with them. I remember Jerry Sadowitz, who's kind of famous for being about the least PC person you can think of, saying, well, I can say Maggie Thatcher's a bad person, or I don't like her policies, and there's it's kind of true, but it's not funny. Or I can get up and say, Margaret Thatcher's a wonderful person, and I'll get a few laughs because I'm being ridiculous, but also I'm getting my point across. So, there is a whole kind of school of comedy that can go that way, really. I also think you have to credit the audience with the intelligence to distinguish between the politics or attitudes of a character compared to the differing politics and attitudes of the writers and performers, And when a character in drama is unpleasant or expresses political views that are offensive, nobody accuses the writer of being somehow, dodgy politically. But in comedy, often they do.
When I met you a few years ago, we sat in Leicester Square and everybody was shouting George Dawes, George Dawes. Everybody knew you for that. Are you getting away from that now, or will you always be known as George Dawes?
Well, I'm proud of some of the stuff that we did on that show, and it's nice to be known for anything, really. Apart from murder, obviously I've managed to sweep that under the carpet. So, like I say, there's many people out there who are more talented than me who haven't had the opportunities I've had, so I can't complain when people recognise me for something.
Coming up next, we're going to be talking more to Matt and David about their lives and career. But first, we're joined by David Walliams, who is a sex symbol. Women just love you, don't they? What do you do? Teach me. I need to learn.
I don't think I am. I'm just friends with lots of women, that's all.
But they love you. My female friends love you. They fancy you. How do you do it?
Well, I don't know. I've not met them. I just think maybe men don't listen enough to women and talk to them enough. Maybe they should do that.
So I need to be more sensitive, do I?
Well, I don't know. I'm not a sort of. I don't give advice about things like that. But if you want to spend time with women, you understand them and listen to them and do some of the things they like to do.
What do you love doing the most? Do you love doing the dressing up as women bit, or writing the comedy bit, doing the live stuff on stage? What's your favourite bit?
Well, you're kind of most creative when you're writing, but there's something very exciting when we're on this tour about, there's so many people laughing at us. It's a real thrill. And also, I always think, wow, what an amazing privilege when I look out at the end and, the curtain call, and some nights there's 12,000 people applauding. And I think back to when we started in Edinburgh and there were like 4 people in the audience. So I just think, wow, that's an amazing journey. And it's quite humbling. And, so that's a real thrill. It's kind of all, there's lots of parts of it that are really, really enjoyable, and it's great that we get to, not all writers get to go up and then perform their own stuff, and some people are just actors and they don't, so we're in a very special position. It's something that's actually quite unique to comedy in that, being a writer-performer, it doesn't happen that much in drama. I can't think of hardly anybody who writes and performs their own things in drama, and, maybe Stephen Burke or a few other people, but it's not common. So yeah, I sort of enjoy all of it, really.
What's the balance between luck and talent? Because there are a lot of people in show business who don't make it, who are great. I mean, how much luck did you have to get where you are today? Or do you think your material speaks for itself?
I think there's a lot of luck in the sort of timing of things, and there's a lot of hard work. I mean, it's really hard to say. I mean, I think luck is like winning the lottery, isn't it, or something? I'm not sure, working really hard, plugging away, doing shows in Edinburgh, of, being booed off, still wanting to do it. I don't know if that makes you lucky. I don't know. I mean, a lot of people say they want to do something like, be a singer or do comedy, but they actually do have to sort of put in the hours a bit. I mean, when I watch X Factor, people often go, "This is my dream." And I thought, since you woke up this morning. You know what I mean? I mean, if you really, really are serious about this, you probably would have done more than just queued up in a shopping centre for 2 hours.
The luck is probably having the talent. That's the luck.
I mean, obviously we have been really lucky and our show came out at the right time, but it's not... We weren't sitting at home and one day we got a phone call, would you like to do a show on TV? It doesn't work like that.
You were the biggest guy for Sports Relief this year. They all loved you because it was such a huge feat to take on, especially being a comedian. I mean, there aren't many comedians who are fit enough to do it in the first place. Why did you want to do it? I mean,
I wanted to do something for the charity. Me and Matt did a DVD last year for Comic Relief, and so they took us out to Ethiopia and we saw a lot of the suffering there, and I thought it would be great to do something next year for Sport Relief. I'm not sporty. The only thing I vaguely enjoy doing is swimming, or swim a mile in a pool, a few times a week. And so I thought, well, that's about the only thing I can think of. I didn't know how hard it was when I took it on, and I didn't know how big a story it was going to be. But I think people responded to that it just looked hard. It's just a one guy in his swimming trunks and his hat and a pair of goggles and big cold stretch of water. So it couldn't have worked out any better, really.
In one way, it couldn't have worked out any better, but in another way, you were doing a live show in the evening and having to get up early in the morning to go and train. Most people who are on tour don't want to do anything during the day, let alone try and swim.
I just had to be sort of disciplined about it and not have too many late nights, not go out drinking. I mean, I quite actually liked having the goal. Actually, I found it quite good. It sort of focused me and it gave me something else to think about when I was on tour. But it was scary, and it was, I was tired a lot of the time because of it. I think more tired than I would normally be. But I wouldn't change it for anything. I'm really proud of the achievement, and proud mainly to have raised the money. And it's speaks of the great generosity of the British public that it raised £1 million, and that you couldn't imagine that in every country, that happening. And it's great credit to Comic Relief, which is basically the same charity, Sport Relief, for being so well organised and kind of getting me the best trainer and booking out all the pools and all of that. I mean, a lot of people, when they say, "Oh, I saw you do that show. Did you do any training?" Okay, yes, for about 10 months. But I really enjoyed it. I almost now miss having that goal.
Just the fact that you're dodging things in the water. I mean, how unpleasant was that on a scale of 1 to 10?
It's
on a scale of 1 to 10, Dave.
Oh, okay. It's just, I don't know, it's a 7. I think you just have to confront your fears, and that's the hardest thing. It's a lot of people don't even like swimming in the sea, do they? A lot of people you meet, they go on holiday somewhere lovely and they still don't swim in the sea. Not that many people swim in the middle, you just don't do it, do you? Go out miles from the shore and swim. But I just had to think, there was more me getting stung by a jellyfish or swimming through some sewage. It's not really important. What's important is the people that we met in Ethiopia, and when we left, and the sense of promise that we had that we were going to keep on trying to do something. That was what I was focusing on, and that got me through it. It's actually the cold that is the worst thing, because the cold is so miserable. Just being freezing and shaking and shivering and not being able to close your fingers together because you're so cold, And that's what I'd never thought through how cold it was going to be.
You raised a huge amount of money. Do you plan to go back to see what good that money's done?
Yeah, I think hopefully me and Matt might get a chance to go on a trip next year, because it's a great one. I mean, I don't think I'd have done what I did unless I'd seen what I saw, because I don't think you would go make that kind of effort, because you just think, oh, it's for some people in Africa. But when you've actually met them and you sit in a tin hut with someone who's dying of AIDS, you kind of feel a bit more responsible, But yeah, I'd love to go back and I'd like to carry on for as long as we're popular. I mean, it's a great thing. We're popular at the moment. So when we brought out a DVD, that raised £2 million. The one with Elton and George Michael and Robbie Williams in, and the swim was great. And, it worked well because people knew who I was. And so they gave the money. But, and I think for as long as we're popular, it would be great to carry on that association with Comic Relief.
Congratulations, really, because, you've come so far in such a little time and you're a household name. How does that work in living your life? Can you go anywhere now and have privacy?
Well, being a household name, if in the supermarket, I can get mistaken for a bottle of Jif. So I have to be careful. You still have to live your life doing the same normal things. And if you get too far away from that, I think it's harder to create stuff that people identify with. So actually, you've just got to strike a balance. But, you still go out with your friends from school and college and see your family and do all the things you've always done, I think.
I think it'd be different if we were like pop stars or something, because I think if people see some Robbie Williams in the street, they'll probably scream. But with us, they just go, "That's that bloke from that thing." So I also think it's slightly different in London, strangely. I think that when we toured around the country, people were a little more excited to see us, and then we live in London, and it's also my local area. Everyone who's seen me now, and they're bored of me, so they don't bother saying anything. So, it's fine. And most of the time it's nice. People appreciate it. They know you. In all likelihood, they like what you do and appreciate what you do. And so someone coming up to you saying they like the show or wanting an autograph or a picture is no hardship. And I think back to when I was young and I used to get people's autographs when I saw famous people and the pleasure it gave me. And I always try and think of that and think, this is part of it all, and I'd probably miss it if it was gone.
I think if you're a certain person, say if you're, Andrew Marr, people will come up and talk about news and politics. If you're Jeremy Clarkson, you'll get blokes coming, tell me about the new car.
I think that would be worse. Or we met John McCurrick and people come up to him and ask him for a tip for a bet, which I think, the worst we get is just people shouting catchphrases at us.
That's it. But
everybody is very nice.
Dale Winton always gets people asking what the lottery numbers are going to be. But what's nice for us is that the show has a large audience of kids. So it's actually kids that respond to us on the street, which is great because they're not sycophantic in any way. They speak their minds. So actually, they're kind of, in a great way, in a positive way, nice and blunt. We've known each other for 16 years. And there's friends of David I've known for 16 years because he has the same friends then that he has now. And so, you know, that's an indicator to me, really. You know what I mean? That I feel we're fairly grounded.
We're just serious about what we do, so, you know, I'd hate to think that we were doing a live show and it was suffering because I'd been out the night before getting drunk. I couldn't forgive myself if those people didn't get a good show because I was hungover or drunk or something, or high or something. It'd be awful. So just very sort of focused on that, and there's no bigger high than performing on stage in front of thousands of people and they're all laughing and applauding. I mean, that outstrips anything, and I feel very privileged to experience that.
Congratulations, and thanks so much for talking to me. I appreciate it.
It's been lovely.